Every Special Forces operator is taught that the wall is their greatest defense. But what happens when the men behind the wall decide to walk away? In 1997, the U.S. 7th Special Forces Group at Fort Bragg trained a select group of Mexican soldiers to be the ultimate cartel hunters. They taught them small unit tactics, advanced marksmanship, and the band interrogation techniques needed to break the world's most dangerous men. But Uncle Sam made one fatal mistake. He gave the ultimate toolkit to men who were only earning $500 a month. Within years, those hunters became the prey. They defected to form Los Zetas, the first cartel to use special forces logic to run a drug empire. Today, the war has escalated. As of March 2026, U.S. Navy SEALs are back in Mexico, training a new generation of hunters to stop a cartel that is now using suicide drones and car bombs. This is the story of how the world's most elite training created the world's most dangerous cartels. The cartels also recruited the Kaibiles from Guatemala. Their training camp is literally called El Infierno, hell. To graduate, they must roll through thorns in their underwear and stand neck-deep in water for days. The mechanism: dehumanization. They are taught to bite the heads off live chickens to prove they can turn off their human empathy response. By the time they join a cartel, they are weapon systems using annihilation attacks, a rule where they don't just clear a room, they ensure nothing stays alive inside it. As of February 2026, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, is the primary threat. They use weaponized drones and IEDs. In response, the Mexican government authorized U.S. Navy SEALs to conduct enhancing special operations missions. The mechanism: interoperability, playing on the same team. This is like when players in a video game use the same headsets and maps to talk to each other. The U.S. is teaching the Ghost system, a digital network that tracks cartel members through phone pings. The SEALs are training the military to fight a cartel that is already using Special Forces doctrine, running its own SERE-style camps in the Highlands. While cartels still use banned physical trauma, Tier 1 units have shifted. They realize that violence creates bad intel because a man in pain will say anything to make it stop. Instead, they use the SHARF technique. The mechanism: illusion of omniscience, the I know everything trick. This is a trick where hunters act like they already know every secret. They sit a prisoner in a comfortable chair and show him 4K drone feeds of his family's house. The mechanism: cognitive overload. They don't ask questions. They make statements and let the prisoner correct them. You don't have to break a man's ribs if you've already broken his secret. The story of Special Forces and the cartels is an infinite loop. Every time a new band technique is developed to hunt the bad guys, it eventually finds its way into their hands. The heroes training today in Campeche may be the shadow bosses of tomorrow. The drug war isn't a war of morality. It's a war of transferable skills. The GAFE betrayal. To understand the brutal violence in Mexico today, you have to go back to a single unit: the GAFE, the Special Forces Airmobile Group. In the mid-90s, the GAF were the golden boys of the Mexican military. They were hand-picked, rigorously tested, and seen as the incorruptible spearhead in the war on drugs. Washington agreed. As part of the new NAFTA-era cooperation, the U.S. needed a stable partner on its southern border. So they invested millions, bringing GAFE soldiers to American bases to teach them the art of intimidation. This wasn't just about shooting straight. It was about psychological warfare. They were given the U.S. military's SERE manual, a classified playbook on survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. The entire purpose was to teach soldiers how to withstand being tortured by an enemy. The mechanism behind this training was professionalization. But the GAFE trainers discovered a loophole in the logic. If you know exactly how to resist these brutal tactics, you know exactly how to apply them. In 1996, the commander of the Gulf Cartel, Royale Guillen, made a business decision. He didn't just want bodyguards. He wanted an army. He made an offer to a promising GAFE lieutenant, Heriberto Lascano, also known as Z3. The offer was simple. Abandon your $500 monthly salary, and I will make you a millionaire. Lascano accepted. And he took 30 of his most elite, US-trained commandos with him. They used their SERE resistance training to reverse engineer interrogation protocols. Their goal was to deconstruct the human mind, turning a military survival guide into a manual for terror. They weren't just muscle anymore. They were Los Zetas, the Gulf Cartel's new private army. The Zetas quickly realized they needed to expand. They needed more soldiers who shared their unique, brutal mindset. They found them south of the border, in the jungles of Guatemala. They recruited the Kaibiles. The Kaibiles are Guatemala's special forces, forged in a brutal 36-year civil war. Their training camp is not a metaphor. It is literally called El Infierno. The 6-week course is designed to break a man. Recruits are forced to roll through thorns in their underwear for hours. They stand neck-deep in stagnant water for days on end, learning to sleep upright. To graduate, they must perform the infamous Kaibil ritual, biting the head off a live chicken and drinking its blood. The goal is to prove a soldier can turn off their human empathy response on command. When the Zetas began offering salaries 10 times what the Guatemalan army could pay, the Kaibiles flooded in. They were not just soldiers. They were perfect weapon systems. They brought with them the doctrine of annihilation attacks. This is a tactical rule where a unit doesn't just clear a room of hostiles. They ensure that absolutely nothing stays alive inside it, rival or civilian. It was the Kaibiles who helped pioneer the Zeta tactic of mass beheadings. They turned violence from a tool into a form of marketing. But the Zetas were about to make a decision that would change everything. They were done being someone else's army. By 2007, Royale Guillen was sitting in a US federal prison after his extradition. The man who built Los Zetas was gone, and the organization he built to serve the Gulf Cartel had quietly outgrown it. By 2010, Los Zetas had a presence in hundreds of municipalities across Mexico. They had crossed into Guatemala and seized strategic trafficking corridors. They had built their own accounting systems, their own recruitment pipelines, their own intelligence networks. They no longer needed the Gulf Cartel. The final trigger was a single murder. A Gulf Cartel lieutenant ordered the killing of a Zetas operator in Reynosa over a territorial dispute. The Zetas demanded the killer be handed over. The Gulf Cartel refused. In February 2010, Los Zetas formally broke away and declared war on their former employer. What followed was the most violent period in the history of Mexican organized crime. The Gulf Cartel, now desperate, allied with their former enemy, the Sinaloa Cartel, to fight their own ex-enforcers. The national homicide rate rose 28% in 2010 alone. The Zetas responded with operations that had no precedent. In August 2010, 72 migrants were found executed at a ranch in San Fernando, Tamaulipas. They had been abducted from buses, offered a choice: work for the Zetas or die. And when they refused, they were killed. In August 2011, Zetas operatives stormed the Casino Royale in Monterrey, doused it in gasoline, and set it on fire. 52 people burned to death inside. At their peak in 2011, Los Zetas were the largest cartel in Mexico by geographic territory. Bigger than the Sinaloa cartel, controlling the East Coast corridor from Tamaulipas to Guatemala. Then came the collapse. Lascano was killed in a military confrontation in October 2012. His successor, Miguel Trevino, Z40, was arrested in July 2013. Z40's brother was arrested in March 2015. With no centralized leadership, the organization fractured into rival splinter factions, fighting each other for territory. The Zeta doctrine, their training methods, their tactical violence, their command structures, didn't die with the cartel. It spread. The most dangerous inheritor of that doctrine wasn't a Zeta at all. It was a cartel that had been watching from the West, learning every lesson. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG. The 2026 Ghost War. Today the Zetas have splintered, but their doctrine has spread like a virus. As of early 2026, the primary threat is the CJNG. They are the direct descendants of this brutal ideology. But they have upgraded the hardware. The CJNG uses commercially bought drones, weaponized with IEDs, to attack military patrols. They use car bombs to assassinate politicians. In response, the Mexican government has quietly reauthorized U.S. Navy SEALs to conduct enhancing special operations missions on Mexican soil. These aren't combat missions, they are training missions. The SEALs are giving the Mexican Marines the same digital headsets and maps the U.S. uses. They are teaching them to use the GHOST system, a digital intelligence network that tracks cartel members through their cell phone pings. It links that data to social media, creating a complete pattern of a target's life. But here is the aha fact. The SEALs are training the Mexican military to fight a cartel that is already using Special Forces doctrine against them. Deep in the highlands of Jalisco, the CJNG runs its own brutal SERE-style training camps for new recruits. The students are now the teachers. The story of Special Forces and the cartels is an infinite Narrasi terrifying loop. Every time a new, more sophisticated technique is developed to hunt the enemy, it eventually finds its way into their hands. The intelligence networks, the interrogation methods, the tactical gear. The Mexican Marines learning the GHOST system in Campeche today are being trained to hunt men who were trained by the US a generation ago. Some of these new heroes, earning a meager government salary, will inevitably get a better offer. They will become the shadow bosses of tomorrow. The drug war isn't just a war of morality, fought between good and evil. It's a war of transferable skills, and as long as those skills are more profitable on one side than the other, the loop will never be broken.